Usually, I used to think that being openly communicative with people would have me a bit more understood, or people would kind of like figure me out. But then sometimes you kind of get to a point where you realize not everyone is listening. And it's not even in a bad way or anything. It's not like in a cataclysmic fashion of people just don't want to hear you. It's just some people don't have the capacity to have a full fledged conversation with you without having that form of understanding or trying to understand what you're trying to say. Like, I remember one time when I was growing up, I think I was around 13 or 14. I used to have a friend who seemed like he was listening to a lot of things I'd say, but really he was just using me as background music to an extent. So I ended up telling him a lot of things about my life at that time. And he would come to me the following week and be like, yo, what were you trying to say last time we spoke? And it really hit me at that point in time. Obviously, maybe it didn't hit me as much as it does now, but at the time, it really did hit me because I was pouring my heart out and someone was just listening to my voice as if it was some ASMR session that fulfilled these fantasies. And that was one of the key moments where I truly realized that maybe talking too much or being overly communicative is not really the best thing to do for yourself or to implement, especially at that age. Now, going to high school and varsity and even the workplace, I tend to find that overly communicative people aren't necessarily heard. And it's okay because a lot of people usually have a lot on their mind. Some people have work stress, life stress. Some people are stressed about what they're going to eat tonight. And the last thing they want to hear is you talking about a topic that they don't necessarily care about and don't necessarily want to hurt your feelings and tell you they don't care about because they know how much it might affect you emotionally. And to a certain extent, I end up being a bit more quieter. I naturally just decide to not communicate and just allow things to happen. Because at some point, you start realizing for yourself that maybe you are as alone as you think you are. And sometimes it's not really a bad thing to be alone, you know? Sometimes it's not really a bad thing to just be all in your head and not really focus on what's going on in the current state of life. But there's a caveat because some people confuse you being quiet with you being isolated, and that's not really true. It's just that you've gone through life's experiences, you've experienced everything everyone's supposed to experience at a certain age, and you kind of look at it like if I communicate any further, I might be a bit too overexposed. To a certain extent, it's also kind of made me realize that maybe getting older isn't about having less to say. Maybe it's about finally understanding that not everything needs to be said. But in this regard, I really do hope that I never become so comfortable with being quiet that I forget how to let people in, because that's where things can get tricky. You might find yourself in situations where you might not vent about some things that really need to be vented about. And most of the time, you being talkative isn't necessarily about you trying to overly communicate certain things. Sometimes it's just you just need a point of reference to express so that it doesn't kill you inside. Maybe one day we'll all look back on this phase in our lives and think, maybe if I was quieter coming up and I didn't vocalize a lot of things wouldn't have happened that went the wrong way. Because there is a thing called over communication where you might find yourself expressing things that you never truly felt and it ends up sounding like a lie simply because you can't stop talking. But the takeaway from all of this is being reserved and being quiet is the best way to actually understand people more because there's an art in silence. Once silence is preserved and not exposed fully, you get to truly see how people feel about you with their actions. And maybe that's the whole point.